My name is Holly Forsyth, and at 68 I learned that the word no fits inside a single text message. I was loading the car for the cabin when my phone buzzed. It was my son, Daniel. "Mom, you're hosting Thanksgiving for 30. We already told everyone." I read it twice. I watched my own reflection in the kitchen window go still. Then I typed back the calmest sentence of my life. "Then you'll need a caterer. I'm at the cabin until Monday." His next call came at 6 the following morning. But that call wasn't the worst of it. The worst came 2 days later, when I read what my own family had written in a chat they forgot I could see. "Welcome back to Quiet Strength Stories, where calm people set hard boundaries, and the loudest person in the room rarely wins. If you've ever been treated like your family's unpaid event planner, this one is for you. Drop a comment with one word for how that feels, and be sure to subscribe." People in our county knew my name before they knew my face. For 40 years, I worked in food and gatherings, the kind of work that fills up other people's best days. I started with one rented kitchen and a borrowed van. By the time I slowed down, I'd built something I was quietly proud of. I won't bore you with all of it just yet. What matters is who I became at home. I became quiet. My mother used money like a leash. A gift today, a guilt trip tomorrow, a favor she'd collect for the next 10 years. I swore I would never do that to my own children. So I went the other way. I gave, I stayed silent, and I asked for nothing back. The cabin was Walter's idea. My husband built it himself, board by board, on the north end of Blue Heron Lake. He passed 4 years ago. The cabin still smells like him. Cedar, old coffee, lake air coming through a window that never quite closed. I go there to be no one's host. No schedule, no 30 guests, just water, last name. Quiet isn't weak, quiet is just patient. I'd spent 6 years being patient. I was about to learn exactly what that patience had cost me, and that the bill had been quietly running the whole time. Let me back up 6 years because it matters. Daniel lost his job in the spring. Brooke was pregnant with Lily and Caleb was barely 6. They were scared and I was their mother. So I did what mothers do. I opened the big house, the one Walter and I raised Daniel in, and I told them to stay until they got back on their feet. I moved out to the cabin to give them room. A growing family needs space. A widow needs less than people think. Here's the part nobody ever asked about. I never changed a single line on the deed. Why would I? It was still my home. I still paid the property taxes every December. $11,000 and change, in full, no fuss. I kept the homeowner's insurance in my name. I let them live there rent-free for 6 years and never once made it a thing. In my own head, I was being generous. I see now I was also being invisible. They stopped seeing it as borrowing. Somewhere along the way, in their minds, the house simply became theirs. The driveway became their driveway. The roof became their roof. I didn't correct them. Correcting them felt like my mother's leash. So I let it sit, year after year, in the name of being a good mother who never asked. That silence was a gift I gave freely. It never once crossed my mind that someone would try to pick my pocket with it. By that Tuesday afternoon, someone already had a plan to do exactly that. Now back to that Tuesday. The family group chat had 41 members. Cousins, in-laws, Marlene, Daniel, Brooke, a few people I'd met maybe twice. I was in it, technically. I almost never spoke. Nobody seemed to notice when I didn't. The message came in at 4:11 in the afternoon. Then my sister Marlene, "Holly loves doing this. Best hostess in 3 counties." I read it standing in my kitchen with my car keys already in my hand. I wasn't asked. I was assigned. 30 people. My house, supposedly. My 2 hands, definitely. No, Mom, would you? No, Mom, is that even okay? Just an announcement and a turkey emoji and a sister volunteering me like a folding table. I thought about Caleb and Lily, 12 and 9 now. I didn't want to turn their holiday into a battlefield. They were the only 2 people in that chat I'd walk through fire for. But I also thought about 40 years of full tables and empty thank yous. I typed slowly. I deleted it. I typed again. "Then you'll need a caterer. I'm at the cabin until Monday." Send. I turned off the screen. I finished loading the car. The chat went silent for a full hour after that. I should have known. That particular kind of silence always means people have moved the conversation somewhere you can't see. The drive to the lake takes an hour and 20 minutes. I know every curve of it. I used the time the way you do at 68. I remembered. I remembered 40 Thanksgivings, the ones where I cooked for 18 and washed dishes until midnight while the men watched football in the next room. The Christmas I hosted with the flu because canceling felt like failing somebody. The Easters, the birthdays, the christenings. I was always the one in the kitchen. I was never the one being served. For decades, I called that love. Maybe some of it was. But love and habit get tangled up, and after a while, people stop seeing the person and start seeing the service. There's a line I read once that stuck to me. Other people's lack of a plan is not your emergency. I'd lived my entire life as everyone's emergency. I wasn't tired because I was old. I was tired because I was useful and nothing else. This one felt, why announce a thing to the whole family before you ask the one person who has to do the work? By the time I turned onto the gravel road to the cabin, I didn't have an answer. I had a question that wouldn't let go, and a strange, cold patience settling into my chest like the first snow of the year. Marlene called that evening while I was unpacking groceries at the cabin. My younger sister has a particular voice for when she wants something. Warm on top, a blade underneath. "Holly, sweetheart," she said, "don't make this hard on the kids." "I'm not making anything hard, Marlene." "Daniel's stressed. Brooke's stressed. You backing out looks selfish." "I didn't back out of anything," I said. "I was never asked in." She sighed, the long, theatrical kind. "People are starting to worry about you, Holly." That stopped me. "Worry about me how?" "You've been forgetful, distant, out at that cabin alone all the time." A pause. It's a lot of house for one confused woman to rattle around in. I set the milk carton down very carefully on the counter. "Marlene," I said, "how do you know the dinner's for 30? I only saw that an hour ago." The line went quiet for a beat too long. "Daniel told me," she said, too fast. "Obviously, we talk." "Of course you do. We said our goodbyes." I stood in the dark cabin kitchen a long while afterward, the refrigerator humming, the lake black through the window. Forgetful. Confused. A lot of house for one woman. She'd use those words like she'd practiced them in the car, like they were lines in something already written, with my name in the cast list. I didn't know the shape of it yet, but I knew the smell. Somewhere, a plan had a script, and my own sister had already memorized her part. I couldn't sleep, so I did what I do when Walter feels far away. I took down his cedar box from the closet shelf. He kept everything in it. Our wedding photo, the smell of cedar came up like a hand on my shoulder. Under the photographs was the folder, the deed to the house, 1 page, official, a little yellow at the fold. Grantee Holly Forsythe. One name, mine, alone. Walter had put it in my name years ago, for tax reasons we'd long since stopped thinking about. I held it and felt nothing strategic. I wasn't holding a weapon. I was holding the house where I'd nursed Daniel through chicken pox, where Walter died in the back bedroom with my hand in his. I touched the old brass key. I put the deed back under the photographs. I closed the lid. I told myself the worst part of this week was a rude text and a sister with a sharp tongue. I made a cup of tea I didn't drink, and I went to bed. Outside, the lake was black glass under a half moon. I had a single piece of paper in a cedar box that could end any argument that family could ever start. I just didn't know yet that I'd need it. The call came at 6. My phone rang at 6:02 in the morning. The lake was still gray. I knew before I looked that it was Daniel. I expected an apology. I want to be honest about that. Some small part of me hoped he'd say, "Mom, I was out of line." That is not what I got. "What did you do?" he said. No hello. Tight, clipped, almost a hiss. "Good morning to you two," I said. "The caterer won't confirm the booking. They keep asking who owns the house." "Why are they asking me that, Mom?" I sat up slowly and pulled the quilt around my shoulders. "I haven't done anything, Daniel." "Then why won't they take my deposit?" "I don't know their paperwork," I said, which was almost true. "Maybe they're careful about whose property they're working on." "It's my house," he snapped. There it was, out loud at last, said like a fact he'd never once bothered to test. "Is it?" I said, soft. Just 2 words with a hook in them. A silent, "You'll need a caterer," I said. "I told you that already." I hung up. My hands were perfectly steady. I noticed the steadiness the way you notice the weather, from a little distance with mild surprise. He thought the problem was a stubborn vendor. The problem was a question he had never thought to ask in his entire life. Whose name was on the house? And the strangest part? I still didn't fully understand why they were so desperate, so early with the holidays still more than a week off. That answer came the very next morning, and it was worse than anything I'd imagined. I drank my coffee on the dock and thought it through. Booking a caterer the week before Thanksgiving is close to impossible. Every good kitchen in the county is booked solid by the middle of October. If Daniel had somehow found anyone with an open 30-cover slot this close to the holiday, there was only one firm it could be. The biggest. The best. The one whose name I knew better than my own reflection. That firm has a rule I happen to know cold. For any large private event, the contract has to be signed by the owner of record for the property. Not a guest, not a tenant. The person whose name sits on the deed at the county office, plus a damage deposit in case 30 people and 2 turkeys go badly. It's a smart rule. It protects the firm from exactly the kind of mess where someone books a lavish party at a house that isn't theirs. Daniel had walked straight into that rule, face first. He'd given them the address. They'd checked the address against the county record, and the address came back attached to a name that was not his. He didn't know the half of why that firm's paperwork was so particular. He didn't know that the tired, confused grandmother he kept calling had spent 30 years in that very trade, and still knew its rules cold. But I'm getting ahead of the story. Stay with me. Because the phone was about to ring a second time. "Renata, I'm sorry to bother you on a holiday week. Renata Cole runs the firm now. She came up under me years ago. A line cook with steady hands and a stubborn streak I like the look of. We've stayed close ever since." "You're never a bother," I said. "What's wrong?" "Probably nothing. A man called yesterday. Daniel Forsyth. He booked a 30-cover Thanksgiving." A careful pause. "At your address, Holly, your house." I closed my eyes and let it land. "He gave it as his own," she went on. "He got irritated when we asked for the owner's signature, so I held the booking. I wanted to check with you first." There was the proof of who Renata was. She could have just taken the money. Instead, she protected my name when I wasn't even in the room to know it needed protecting. "Thank you for calling me," I said. "Are you all right?" He made it sound like you'd lost track of things. "I haven't lost track of anything," I said. "For the first time in years, I'm seeing it all very clearly." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I wasn't about to let a stranger throw a party over your name without asking you first. You taught me that much." I almost cried hearing it. Not from sadness, from being finally seen by somebody. "Hold the booking," I said. "Don't confirm a thing. I'll call you Monday." I hung up with a plan beginning to form. I didn't have all of it yet. The worst piece of it I still hadn't read. Brooke texted me directly that afternoon. She almost never did. "Hi, Mom. I hope the lake is peaceful. When you're back, can we sit down, just us? I think it's time we talked about the house. For the kids' future, weeks. I read it 3 times. The house. Not your house. Not the dinner. The house, like a topic that had been waiting in a folder for me. Then a second text arrived 8 seconds later. A link, no message. I tapped playing cards at a sunny table. A third text, "Oops, wrong one, sorry." I set the phone face down on the dock railing and watched a heron lift off the water. Wrong one. Of course. Just like Marlene obviously knew the head count. Just like the whole family had suddenly noticed I was slipping. The pieces weren't connected in my head yet, but they were all the same color. Let me stop here for 1 second. If you've ever gotten a message like that, sweet on the surface, with a knife folded inside, you know the exact feeling in your stomach right now. If you do, type, "I know that feeling" in the comments. It tells me who I'm really talking to. Now let me show you what landed in my phone the very next morning, because that's where this whole story turns. It came in at 9:17 the next morning, in the big family chat, the one with all 41 people in it. Brooke posted it. I think her thumbs moved faster than her brain. Okay, everyone, mom plan for Thursday. After the toast, before the wine, Marlene opens, gentle, concerned. Then I bring out the Cedar Grove brochure. Keep it loving, keep it sad. She's getting confused anyway, so it won't be hard to sell. We're only protecting the family home. Daniel has the transfer papers ready for her to sign. Don't let her get cornered into saying no in front of people. She won't want a scene. I read it once. Then I read it again, slower. The way you reread a diagnosis. 41 people. All of them had just seen it. For about 90 seconds, the message sat there, naked, in front of the whole family. Then Brooke again, "Wait, wrong chat, ignore that, deleting!" And the message vanished from everyone's screen, but not from mine. I'd already pressed the 2 buttons that take a picture of a screen. Twice, to be sure. Saved. I sat very still at the kitchen table. The lake threw its light across the ceiling. Walter's me. My name. My mind. My standing in my own family. The plan was to stand me up in front of 30 witnesses and declare me confused. To slide papers under my hand while everyone watched, so that saying no would look like the tantrum of a failing old woman who didn't know what was good for her. She's getting confused anyway, so it won't be hard to sell. That was the worst of it. Not the rude text, not the brochure. It was the casual clerical cruelty of being scheduled for erasure, penciled in like a chore, between the toast and the wine. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone names. I got up and made a pot of tea, and I let it steep the full 4 minutes. They didn't just want my house, they wanted me gone first. And now I had it. In their own words, saved in 2 photographs, the script they'd written for me. I was about to write the ending myself. Here's what I want you to understand about quiet people. We don't explode. We clarify. I didn't scream into the lake. I didn't call Daniel and weep down the phone. I poured the tea, I sat, and I let myself feel exactly how much it hurt. It hurt like a deep bruise you don't see until something presses on it. Then I got up and took down the cedar box again. I lifted out the deed. The same single page I'd held 2 nights before, but I held it differently this time. 2 nights ago it was a memory. This morning it was a tool. One name, mine. Sole owner. No co-signer to argue with. No mortgage to leverage against me. The house was, in the plainest legal sense there is, entirely mine. For 6 years I'd stayed silent about that, terrified of becoming my mother, the kind of woman who waves a deed around like a whip. I had swallowed my own ground just to keep from standing on theirs. But there's a difference between using money to control your children and simply refusing to let them rob you. It took me 68 years. I photographed the deed too. 3 pictures now lived in my phone. The deed and the 2 of their plan. Then I picked up the phone and called the one person who'd known Walter and me for 30 years. My lawyer answered on the second ring. Estelle Brandt has been my lawyer and my friend since before either of us had gray hair. She doesn't waste words. I have always liked that in a person. I told her everything. The text, the caterer, Marlene's rehearsed worry, the brochure, the message in the chat. I read it to her word for word off my screenshot. She was quiet when I finished. Then, Holly, you still own the house outright? One name, mine. And they've lived there how long? Paying what? 6 years, nothing. No lease, no rent, not $1. Then they're tenants at will, she said. No written lease, no fixed term. In this state, you can end that arrangement with proper written notice. 30 days. Just like that? Just like that. It isn't dramatic. It isn't a trick. It's the oldest, plainest part of property law there is. I let out a breath I think I'd been holding since 9/17. There's more I can do, she went on. We can put the house into a trust. You name the beneficiaries. You set the terms. Then nobody can ever pressure you into signing it away because there'd be nothing loose left to sign. It's locked. In a way that only you control. Caleb and Lily, I said at once. The grandchildren. When they're grown, we can absolutely do that. No secret clauses, no clever ambush, just a notice and a trust, both of them as ordinary as rain. Estelle, I said, how fast can you draw it all up? Come in Monday morning. Bring the deed. Monday. I told them Monday. I always keep my word. Estelle wanted to handle it the gentle way. I understood why. We could mail the notice today, she said. Quiet, private, no audience. 30 people, Estelle. They wanted witnesses. They wanted me cornered and small in a room full of family. I looked out at the lake. So the truth can come out in that same room, calmly, in front of those same witnesses. You don't have to prove anything to those people. I'm not proving anything, I said. I'm just going to stop hiding what's already true. She sighed, but I heard the smile inside it. You're going to walk straight into your own ambush. I'm going to keep my word and come for Thanksgiving, I said. I'm just going to bring the right paperwork. I had one more call to make. I dialed Renata. Confirm the booking, I told her. 30 covers, Thursday. And Renata, I'd like you to run this one yourself, on site, personally. A pause. For your family's dinner? For the dinner at my house, I said. I want the owner's release signed properly, in person, by the owner. She understood far more than I'd said out loud. I'll be there at noon, she said. I hung up and watched the heron come back to the same flat rock it always chose. Monday I'd sign, Thursday I'd show up, and I would not raise my voice one single time. Monday morning I drove back into town. I kept my word, you see. I'd said the cabin until Monday, and Monday was when I left it. Estelle's office smells like old paper and good coffee. I sat across from her for 2 full hours. I signed the 30-day notice to quit. We didn't serve it yet. We dated it, sealed it, and set it aside for Thursday. I signed the trust documents. The house, every brick of it, would be held for Caleb and Lily until each of them turned 25. I could live in it, rent it, or leave it shuttered as I pleased for the rest of my natural life. After me, it passed straight to the children. No one could buy it, beg it, or trick it out of my hands. There was simply nothing left to corner me into signing. Estelle had a notarized copy of the shots. Then I texted the family chat, sweet as pie. Looking forward to Thursday, everyone. Save me a seat. Daniel replied inside a minute. So glad you came around, Mom. I almost laughed out loud. He thought I'd folded. He thought a sweet text meant surrender. They were probably congratulating each other right then, in some other little chat I couldn't see. I let them think it. A quiet woman knows the exact value of a closed mouth. I had 4 days. The deed was in my purse. The cedar box stayed home, but its one page came with me everywhere now. I promised I'd tell you who I really am. Now is the time. 40 years ago, I was a young widow's daughter with $80 in a recipe box. I rented a dead restaurant's kitchen by the hour and cooked for other people's weddings. I scrubbed my own pans. I drove my own van. I undercharged for years because I didn't quite believe my work was worth more. It was worth more. I built a catering and events company out of that one rented kitchen. I named it after the cardinal that nested outside the first window. Cardinal Table. 30 years of 18-hour days, and it became the firm in our county. The one you booked if you wanted it done right. Yes, that firm. The one Daniel had called in a panic. The one Renata runs. The one whose careful paperwork had quietly snagged the whole scheme before it ever reached the table. I built it from nothing, and my name is still on the door. I catered the mayor's daughter's wedding, the hospital galas, the country club's 50th anniversary. Half the people who'd be sitting at that Thanksgiving table had eaten food I planned, off china I chose, served by staff I personally trained. I sold off my day-to-day role 5 years ago and handed the kitchen to Renata, but the rules are still the ones I wrote. My family saw a tired grandmother who liked her quiet little cabin. They forgot, or they never bothered, the most useful disguise a woman can ever put on. Thursday, I was going to take the disguise off, at my own table, in front of everyone. I just had to survive 3 more days of being told how confused I was. Wednesday, I stopped by the firm. Force of habit, maybe. Or maybe I just wanted to stand in my own kitchen one more time before everything turned over. Renata met me at the prep station. The kitchen ran around us like a tide. A dozen cooks, the smell of sage and roasting bone, sheet trays stacked nearly to the ceiling. 30 covers, plated. Your house. Thursday, noon, she said. 2 turkeys, the cranberry you like, the cornbread dressing. Full staff. And the release? I asked. Standard, she said. Every large event ends with an on-site sign-off. The owner of record signs our release at the table before we close out the night. It settles the damage deposit and clears the property. No signature from the owner, no closing the file. She gave me a level look. The owner of record, which the county system says is one Holly Forsythe. It does say that, I agreed. Daniel listed himself, she said. When my office flagged the mismatch, he told us his elderly mother gets confused about what she owns. A beat. I didn't correct him. I figured you'd want to do that part yourself. I put my hand over hers on the cold steel counter. Renata, I said. Thursday, set the dinner exactly as booked. Serve every course. Then, during the meal, bring the release to the table and read out who has to sign it. Out loud so the whole room hears. I paused. No special favors, no theatrics, just your ordinary ironclad procedure. She smiled the smile of a woman who'd been waiting 15 years to watch me take a room back. Procedure, she said, is the most ruthless thing in the world. You taught me that, too. I left the kitchen. Tomorrow was Thanksgiving. I heard later how sure they were. Caleb told me, much later in the quiet way kids tell you things. By Wednesday night, Daniel and Brooke believed they'd already won. Mom came around. Mom was bringing her pie and her sweet smile. Mom would sit exactly where she was told to sit and sign exactly what she was handed. They had a script. They had a camera. They had a sad, kind, airtight little play, rehearsed down to the last tearful pause, and I was cast as the confused old woman who signs. They were so confident in the performance, they never once checked the thing it all stood on. Whose name was on the house they were busy dividing. Before we get to the part you came for, one question. When your family decides your life without you, do you fight loud or go quiet and get ready? There's no wrong answer. Tell me which one you are in the comments. Then stay with me. Because Thursday is where everything they planned met the one fact they never checked. They thought Thursday was their ambush. They had no idea it was mine, and I wasn't bringing a weapon. I was bringing a fact. Thursday morning, I came to the house early before the crowd. I told myself it was to help. The truth is, I wanted to stand in my own rooms a while. The dining room was already set. Cardinal table linens, my old china pattern, candles in the good brass holders. Funny, the things that survive a marriage and a widowhood and end up still on the table. I was in the hallway when I heard Brooke in the den. She didn't know I was there. She was talking to Lily, low and tight. It's going to be fine, baby. We're not going to lose this house. I promise you that. Lily said something I couldn't quite hear. Because I grew up with nothing, Brooke said, and her voice cracked clean down the middle on the word nothing. 3 apartments in 2 years. I'm never letting you feel that. Never. I decided that my security was the fair price of hers. I knew that exact fear. I'd built an entire company outrunning it. For one breath, I almost softened. I almost thought, maybe there's a kinder way to do this. Then I remembered the words. She's getting confused anyway, so it won't be hard to sell. She had decided to protect her children by erasing me, by telling 30 people I'd lost my mind. Fear explains her. It doesn't excuse the brochure. I straightened my collar and walked toward the kitchen, where the first guests were already arriving. By noon, the house was full. 30 people, exactly as promised. Cousins I see once a year. 2 of Walter's old golf friends. Marlene in pearls, holding court over by the window. The Cardinal table staff moved through all of it in black aprons. Quiet, precise, invisible in the way good service is supposed to be. Renata stood near the kitchen door with her clipboard, watching the room the way I'd taught her to watch a room. She caught my eye exactly once. We didn't nod. We didn't need to. I made the rounds like a good grandmother. I admired the centerpiece I had paid for. I let Marlene kiss my cheek and tell me how rested I looked, which is what people say when they mean something else entirely. Caleb found me by the stairs and hugged me hard around the middle. Lily showed me a loose tooth, wiggling it with great pride. I held on to those 2 minutes longer than either of them knew. My purse stayed on my shoulder the whole time. Inside it, folded into thirds, the deed, the sealed notice, the printed screenshots. I didn't touch it. I just felt its small, certain weight against my hip. Daniel kept glancing at the head of the table where a single sheet of paper lay face down beside a good pen. He thought I hadn't noticed it. I'd noticed it the second I walked through my own front door. Brooke smiled at me from across the room. His team served the plates at 1:30. Turkey, dressing, the cranberry I like. The room filled up with the good warm noise of 30 people eating. Daniel stood up at 1:52. I checked my watch on purpose so I'd remember it later. He tapped his glass with the edge of a knife. The room quieted in that pleased, expectant way. "Before we go any further," he said, "I want to talk about something as a family, about Mom, and about the house." A few heads turned toward me, warm and unsuspecting. Marlene set down her fork right on cue. "We've all noticed it," she said, soft and grave. "Holly hasn't been herself, forgetting things, out at that cabin all alone." She pressed a hand to her chest. "We love you, sweetheart. We're just so worried about you." Brooke rose next, dabbing carefully at her eyes. She reached into a tote bag and laid a glossy trifold down on the white tablecloth, turning it so the whole table could read it. "Cedar Grove Senior Living, smiling strangers playing cards." "She's getting confused," Brooke said gently to the entire room. "We're only protecting the family home, for the children." A cousin lifted her phone and started filming, angled right at me. For the memories, for the record. 30 faces turned my way, all arranged into that particular softness people wear when they've already decided you're a thing to be pitied. I set down my fork, I folded my hands in my lap, and I said nothing at all. Not yet. Let them finish the play. I wanted every one of them all the way out on the branch. Before I mentioned, in my ordinary indoor voice, exactly who owned the tree. Daniel reached for the paper that had been waiting face down by the head of the table. He carried it over to me himself with the pen, like a man bringing his mother a gift. He set it down beside my plate and crouched low next to me. "You don't have to worry about any of it anymore. We'll take care of everything. You can finally rest." I looked at the paper. A quitclaim deed. Transfer of the property from Holly Forsythe to Daniel and Brooke Forsythe. My name typed neatly on the line, waiting for my hand to make it true. "For everyone's peace of mind," Marlene added from across the table. The room held its breath. 30 people, a camera. A kind son crouched at my chair, a brochure on the tablecloth. Every piece of the play set perfectly in place. I want you to know exactly how I felt right then. Not panicked, not small. I felt the way you feel when a long, slow ache finally finds its location, and you understand at last precisely where it has been living all this time. I picked up the pen. I heard Brooke exhale. I saw Daniel's shoulders drop in relief. Then I set the pen back down, uncapped, beside the paper. "Before I sign anything," I said in the most ordinary voice I own, "I believe the caterer needs a signature first. Don't they, Renata?" And Renata stepped forward. Renata crossed the dining room with her clipboard. All business, exactly as I'd asked her to be. "My apologies for the interruption," she said to the table, warm and professional. "Company policy. Before we close out an event this size, the property's owner of record signs our release in person. It clears the damage deposit and signs off the property." Daniel stood up. "That's me. I booked it." "You did call it in," Renata agreed, pleasantly. She turned a page on the clipboard. "But the booking flagged a name mismatch with the county property record, so I'll need the actual owner." She read directly off the form, clear enough to carry to the back of the room. "Owner of record for this address, Ms. Holly Forsythe, sole owner." The word sole hung in the air like a struck bell. "A mistake," Daniel said, much too loud. "The records are old. It's basically our—" I opened my purse. I took out the notarized copy of the deed and laid it on the white tablecloth, right next to the quitclaim they'd brought, next to the brochure, next to the good pen. One page, crisp county stamp, one single name on the grantee line. "It isn't old," I said quietly, "and it isn't a mistake." 30 people leaned in to read it. The whole room had gone very, very still. I stood up. I didn't need to, but I wanted to be at eye level with my family when I said it. I kept my voice low, lower than the room. People had to lean in to hear me, and they did. "You told everyone I was hosting Thanksgiving," I said to Daniel. "You already told everyone. You just forgot to tell the one person it all depended on." He started to speak. I went on, gentle as anything. "You invited 30 people into my house." I let it sit a moment. "You just forgot to invite the one who owns it." Daniel's face went red, then white. "After everything we've done for you," he burst out, far too loud now. "We took care of this place. We earned—" "You lived here, rent-free, for 6 years, I said. "I paid the taxes. I paid the insurance. I never once asked you for a single dollar." Brooke was crying now, the kind that performs. "How can you do this to us at Thanksgiving in front of everyone?" I looked at her, and I felt no anger at all. That surprised me more than anything. "I read the plan, Brooke," I said. "The one you posted in the family chat by mistake. After the toast, before the wine. She's getting confused anyway, so it won't be hard to sell." I turned to the table. "I have a copy. I won't read you the rest. You all heard plenty of the performance live." Silence. "I'm 68 years old and sharper than this entire table," I said. I was shaking. I was perfectly calm. That, I think, was the exact moment the room finally understood. The cousin with the phone slid it back into her pocket. Nobody wanted footage of the confused old woman anymore. Walter's golf friends were staring at Daniel. One of Brooke's church friends, invited, of course, as a witness to my decline, quietly pushed back her chair. Marlene tried to climb out of it. "Now, I never said, I only repeated what Daniel told me." "You said I rattle around in too much house, Marlene," I said. "On the phone, Tuesday night. You had it rehearsed." She closed her mouth. I nodded once toward the doorway. Estelle had been standing there since 1 o'clock in a gray coat, holding a single envelope. I'd asked her to come as my guest. She had come as my lawyer. She walked to Daniel and held the envelope out to him. "This is a 30-day notice to quit," Estelle said, calm and clear. "Lawful written notice. You and Brooke have 30 days to vacate the property. It's all in order." Daniel took it because his hand opened before his brain caught up. "There's also the small matter of the catering deposit," Renata added, almost kindly. $4,500. You signed for the damage liability personally, Mr. Forsyth, when you booked under your own name. That one is yours. 30 days, $4,500. Numbers you can hold in your hand. Numbers that don't care how loudly anyone cries at a dinner table. The play was over. Nobody had to announce it. They could read it plainly on all 30 faces. I picked up my purse. I left the deed lying on the table for them to read as long as they liked. I didn't gloat. There was nothing left in me that wanted to. The ache had found its home and gone quiet. I bent down to Caleb and Lily, who had watched the whole thing wide-eyed from the end of the table. "None of this is about you two," I told them, blinked fast and nodded. I straightened up and spoke to the room, easy and clear. "The dinner's all paid for," I said. "Every bit of it. Please, sit, eat, enjoy yourselves. The turkey's the best in 3 counties. I let myself smile. "Marlene will tell you." I thanked Renata at the door and squeezed her hand. 15 years, and she had handed me back my own room without once raising her voice. Then I turned to the people still frozen at my table, and I said the last thing I'd come there to say. "I'm at the cabin until Monday." I put on my coat. I walked out my own front door into the cold, bright afternoon, got into my car, and drove north toward the lake. Behind me, 30 people sat at a table I'd paid for, in a house I owned, in a silence I had finally chosen for myself. I rolled the window down on the highway. The air smelled like the first real snow of the year. They moved out in 26 days, 4 days early, I heard, to dodge the formal eviction filing Estelle had ready and waiting. They rented a 2-bedroom across town. Daniel paid the $4,500 himself in 3 installments, because the booking had carried his name on it, and not one single line of it had ever carried mine. Marlene called me twice in December, the first time to apologize, the second time, when that didn't get her anywhere, to ask about her share of the house, as though there had ever been one. I told her there was no share, there was no sale, and there would be no more calls. I haven't heard from her since. I find I sleep just fine. The cousins' video never went anywhere useful for them, but Brooke's church friends talk, the way people do. Within a month, she had quietly stepped down from the holiday committee she loved. Nobody pushed her out. They simply stopped saving her a seat. I didn't put the house up for sale. I didn't move back into it either. I had Estelle finish the trust instead. Luce left to sign. It's locked. In the one way I control. Here's the part that matters most to me. I kept the grandchildren. That was the thing I'd been most afraid of losing, back at the kitchen table with the cold tea. I picked them up every other Saturday. Lily finally lost that tooth. Caleb is taller than me now. We make pancakes at the cabin and skip rocks off Walter's dock, and we don't talk about that Thanksgiving at all. Daniel and I speak sometimes, carefully. He has never once said he was sorry. Not really. He said he was under a lot of pressure, which is a very different thing wearing sorry's coat. I let him keep his version. I don't need a confession from him. I needed him to learn where the line was. Now he knows. The line is bright and it holds. I still cook Thanksgiving. I want you to know that. I'm not bitter and I never stopped loving my family. But now I cook when I'm asked, not when I'm assigned. There's a whole world of difference between those two words, and it took me 68 years to move into it. Last year, I roasted a turkey at the cabin for 6 people who all said thank you. Caleb carved it, badly and proudly. The cabin stayed mine. The house stayed in trust. My name stayed on everything that was ever mine to begin with. I didn't stop being family. I stopped being furniture. If there's one thing I'd hand you across this table, it's this. Kindness without a boundary isn't love. It's just a door you forgot to lock. That's my story. One text, one quiet no, one name on a deed. If it reminded you that your generosity is yours to give, not theirs to assume, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.